In the previous video, we knew that Dr. Sadao advised the white man to leave his house and go to the island. Dr. Sadao arranged a boat. He put food and water in it. Hana knew nothing about it. Before going to his bedroom, Dr. Sadao went to the guest room. He examined the white man. Now see what happened after that. I realize you are saving my life again, he told Sadao. Not at all, Sadao said. It is only inconvenient. Inconvenient means difficult, troublesome to have you here any longer. Tom told Dr. Sadao that he had realized that Dr. Sadao was saving his life once again. Dr. Sadao said that it was not true. It had become difficult to keep Tom in his house for more time. He had hesitated a good deal about giving the man a flashlight, but he had decided to give it to him after all. It was a small one, his own, which he used at night when he was called. Dr. Sadao thought a lot about giving a flashlight to Tom. Finally, he decided to give it to him. The flashlight was his own. He used it when he had to go out to see a patient. If your food runs out before you catch a boat, he said, signal me two flashes. At the same instant, the sun drops over the horizon. Do not signal in darkness, for it will be seen. Dr. Sadao advised Tom to give two flashes if he fell short of food before catching a Korean boat. He advised that he should not give flashes in the night, otherwise, he would be noticed. He should give flash in the evening when the sun drops over the horizon. If you are all right but still there, signal me once. You will find fresh fish easy to catch, but you must eat them raw. A fire would be seen. Okay, the young man breathed. Breathed means said. Dr. Sadao advised Tom that he should give one flash if he was all right at the island. He told Tom that he would be able to catch fish at the island, but he should eat them without cooking, because if he ignited a fire for cooking, it would be noticed. The young man said, okay. He was dressed now in the Japanese clothes which Sadao had given him. At the last moment, Sadao wrapped a black cloth about his blond head. Now, Sadao said. Dr. Sadao gave his own Japanese clothes to Tom. Dr. Sadao also put a black cloth on Tom's head to conceal his blonde hair. Dr. Sadao then said that Tom could now go. The young American, without a word, shook Sadao's hand warmly and then walked quite well across the floor and down the steps into the darkness of the garden. The American did not speak anything. He shook hands with Dr. Sadao. He walked to cross the floor and he took steps to go into the garden. It was dark in the garden. Once, twice, Sadao saw his light flash to find his way, but that would not be suspected. He waited until from the shore there was one more flash. Then he closed the partition. That night he slept. Twice there was flash of the light. Tom was trying to find his way. Dr. Sadao thought that nobody would suspect anything. After some time, there was one more flash at the shore. Dr. Sadao closed the door. He had a good sleep that night. You say the man escaped, the general asked faintly. He had been operated upon a week before, an emergency operation to which Sadao had been called in the night. The general confirmed that Dr. Sadao told him that the person had escaped. Dr. Sadao had informed the general that the person had run away from his house. 7 days ago, the general was operated. Dr. Sadao was called from his home in the night. For 12 hours, Sadao had not been sure the general would live. The gallbladder was much involved. Then the old man had begun to breathe deeply and to demand food. Up to 12 hours from the completion of the operation, Dr. Sadao was not sure if the general would be alive. His gallbladder had a problem, but after some time, the general started breathing heavily. He was feeling hungry, so he asked for food. Sadao had not been able to ask about the assassins. Assassins means professional killers. So far as he knew, they had never come. The servants had returned and Yumi had cleaned the guest room thoroughly and had burned sulfur in it to get the white man's smell out of it. Dr. Sadao did not have the courage to ask the general about the professional killers. He knew that they had never come. The servants had returned to the house. Yumi had cleaned the whole house. She burnt sulfur in the guest room. This was to remove the smell of the American from the guest room. Nobody said anything. Only the gardener was cross. Here, cross means angry because he had got behind with his chrysanthemums. Chrysanthemum is a type of flower. Now, see, nobody said anything. Nobody talked about the white man. Only the gardener was angry because he could not grow his chrysanthemums in time. But after a week, Sadao felt the general was well enough to be spoken about the prisoner. Now see, after 1 week, the general had improved his health. So Dr. Sadao thought that he should inform the general about the prisoner. Yes, Excellency, he escaped. Sadao now said. He coughed, signifying that he had not said all he might have said, but was unwilling to disturb the general further. But the old man opened his eyes suddenly. Now see, Dr. Sadao told the general that the prisoner had escaped. After saying this, he coughed a bit. This meant that he wanted to say something more, but he did not want to disturb the general. The old general suddenly opened his eyes. That prisoner, he said with some energy, did I not promise you I would kill him for you? The general startled and said with some energy that the prisoner had escaped. He asked Dr. Sadao if he had not promised him that he would kill him for him. You did, Excellency, Sadao said. Dr. Sadao respectfully answered that the general had promised. Well, the old man said in a tone of amazement. Amazement means surprise. So I did, but you see, I was suffering a good deal. The truth is, I thought of nothing but myself. In short, I forgot my promise to you. I wondered, Your Excellency, Sadao murmured. Now see, the old man's voice was full of surprise. He said that even he remembered it, but he was sick. He had been thinking only about himself. He forgot his promise. Dr. Sadao told in a very low voice that he was surprised when the assassins did not come. It was certainly very careless of me, the general said. The general accepted that he was very careless about that matter. But you understand, it was not lack of patriotism or dereliction. Dereliction means neglect of duty. The general told Dr. Sadao that his carelessness was not due to the lack of patriotism or neglect of his duty. He looked anxiously at his doctor. The general looked anxiously at Dr. Sadao. If the matter should come out, you would understand that, wouldn't you? The general asked Dr. Sadao if he would understand that if the matter should come out. Actually, the general asked Dr. Sadao if he would help him if the matter came out. Certainly, Your Excellency, Sadao said. Dr. Sadao promised the general that he would certainly understand that. He would certainly help him if the matter came out. He suddenly comprehended. Comprehended means understood that the general was in the palm of his hand. In the palm of his hand means under his control. Dr. Sadao suddenly understood that the journal was under his control and that as a consequence means result, he himself was perfectly safe and that as a result, he himself was perfectly safe. I can swear to your loyalty, Excellency, he said to the old general, and to your zeal, zeal means passion, against the enemy. Dr. Sadao told the old general that he could swear his loyalty and to his passion against the enemy. You are a good man, the general murmured and closed his eyes. You will be rewarded. The general murmured in appreciation that Dr. Sadao was a good man and closed his eyes. The general also told Dr. Sadao that he would be rewarded. But Sadao, searching the spot of black in the twilighted means dark. See, that night had his reward. There was no prick. Prick means a small flash of light in the dusk. Dusk means evening darkness. No one was on the island. His prisoner was gone safe, doubtless, for he had warned him to wait only for a Korean fishing boat. Now see, that evening Dr. Sadao looked at the dark sea. He waited till the sun started setting. He did not see any flashlight. Dr. Sadao considered this as a reward. Now no one was on the island. The prisoner had gone safely and certainly because Dr. Sadao had advised him to travel only in a Korean fishing boat. He stood for a moment on the veranda, gazing out to the sea from whence the young man had come that other night. Now see, Dr. Sadao stood in the veranda of his house for some time. He was looking at the sea from where the young man had come some nights before. And into his mind, although without reason, there came other white faces he had known. The professor at whose house he had met Hannah, a dull means boring man, and his wife had been a silly, talkative woman in spite of her wish to be kind. Now see, without any cause, Dr. Sadao started remembering other white persons known to him. He recalled the professor at whose house he had met Hannah. The professor was a boring person. His wife wanted to be a kind person, but actually she was foolish and talked a lot. He remembered his old teacher of anatomy who had been so insistent means firm, on mercy with the knife, and then he remembered the face of his fat and slatternly means dirty landlady. Dr. Sadao remembered his previous teacher of anatomy. The teacher was very firm that one should understand anatomy before using knife for operation. He remembered his fat and dirty lady owner of his rented house in America. He had had great difficulty in finding a place to live in America because he was a Japanese. The Americans were full of prejudice. Prejudice means misconception or unfavorable opinion, and it had been bitter to live in it, knowing himself their superior. Now see, because Dr. Sadao was a Japanese, he had great difficulty in finding a house to live in America. The Americans had an unfavorable opinion or misconception about the Japanese. It means that the Americans did not like the Japanese. Dr. Sadao thought that the Japanese were superior to the Americans, so it was tough to live in America. How he had despised means disliked or hated the ignorant and dirty old woman who had at last consented means agreed to house means to shelter him in her miserable means poor home. Dr. Sadao remembered how he had disliked the ignorant and dirty old woman who had at last agreed to shelter him in her poor home. He had once tried to be grateful. Grateful means thankful to her because she had in his last year nursed him through influenza. But it was difficult, for she was no less repulsive. Repulsive means offensive and ugly to him in her kindness. Dr. Sadao had once tried to be thankful to the landlady because she had in his last year nursed him when he suffered from influenza, but it was difficult for him to be thankful because she was no less offensive and ugly to him even in her kindness. Now he remembered the youthful haggard means tired, face of his prisoner, white and repulsive. Strange, he thought. I wonder why I could not kill him. Now Dr. Sadao remembered the young and tired face of his prisoner. Dr. Sadao disliked him. He thought that it was very strange that he could not kill the prisoner. In this way, we see that Dr. Sadao saved the life of his enemy. He was surprised that he could not kill the prisoner. He disliked him, but he saved his life and helped him in escaping. How could he kill his patient? It was his duty to save his patient, and he fulfilled his duty as a doctor.